Hello, everyone, and good day to you. A warm welcome to today's webinar. So, my name is Abayomi Ogunjobi. I am your host for today. And just as a form of introduction, I'm the co-founder and director at Penetree. And I must say that I'm privileged to be a member of the board of directors at Fiduciary Services Limited. So, Fiduciary Services Limited is basically a private client and fiduciary services focused firm located in Victoria Island, Lagos, Nigeria, that's in West Africa. And I must say that we're delighted to have you all join us today for conversations in wealth management. And, without any further ado, right, it is my pleasure to introduce to you the moderator of this session. With almost 2 decades of professional proficiency and acumen, our moderator for today, Mercy Edukoho Amina, is the founder and executive director of Fiduciary Services Limited. Mercy is a passionate corporate solicitor. She's actually a friend of mine, right? And also she's actually a governance expert, a chartered secretary and administrator. She's also a trust and estate practitioner. And, most importantly, she's a family wealth advisor. She has a whole lot of experience in that area. Messi and I have worked together in different capacity, and I can tell you that, she has experience and knowledge in the area of the topics that we're speaking about today. So Messi leads and manages the wonderful team of Fiduciary Services Limited, and she has done an exceptional work in leading the team in what they've achieved from inception even up until now. So Messi, it's my pleasure to hand over to you to go on with the session.
Thank you so much, Abayomi. Yeah, so it's really good to be here and to have our panelists already ready to take us on our conversations today. So it's so much pleasure. This is a biannual webinar where we just speak with industry experts within the field of wealth management, family wealth advisory, family business advisory, family governance advisory. And we try to speak with them to understand what are the trends and dynamics from their day-to-day practice, from their day-to-day work that are affecting the lives and legacies of those they serve, the families and the individuals that they serve. So it's our pleasure to have everyone join us today as we continue with our conversation. So this is the third in the series, and we do hope that we would have more of this series to come in the near future. Without much ado, I'm quickly going to run through the introducing Asha Noor. And Asha Noor is the founder and CEO of his private family office, Odyssey Single Family Office. He manages investments along with his family. His interests are in food and water security, Web3, and history. His expertise is in venture capital and private equity investing. After leaving Morgan Stanley as their CFO in Saudi for 14 plus years, he served as CIO, Chief Investment Officer, for a sophisticated single-family office based out of their Riyadh and Singapore offices. He was on the editorial board of the STEP Journal for 5 plus years and is the former chairman of the STEP SIG, Special Interest Group, on business families. He's a fellow of the Family Firm Institute, as well as a former board and faculty member. Asha is a chartered accountant and has an MBA from EdHec Business School, France. He's based in Melbourne, Australia, and we can contact him via his website, ashanoor.com. So it's really a pleasure to have Asha joining us. Australia is about how many hours? Maybe like 13 or 12 hours ahead of us. So it's almost getting to midnight where Asha is. So we are supremely grateful that Asha is able to join us in our conversation today. So thank you so much to our panelists for making out the time to be here with us. We do not take it for granted. So we're going to go into the questions now, and I'm going to ask us to give our to present our opinion and our take on this year and beyond, 2024 and beyond. What would we say are the trends and dynamics that are shaping the lives and legacies of affluent and HNIs and their families?
Thank you so much, Mercy, for the kind introduction. Could I please request some other participants to kindly mute their mics because there's a bit of an echo and distraction coming through, and then I'll be happy to address the question.
Okay, fantastic. Yeah, so
Yeah. So,
I think
okay, so
the IT team, yeah.
yeah, okay, perfect. Now I think it's been muted now. So, yeah, you're talking about trends and fashions, and ideally, my challenge is that I would not want to yield to some of those fashions or trends or fads because they are short term. And the problem with human societies or we as individuals is that we in when we are chasing some of these trends, we at times just adopt the useless and we just let go of the useful. And again, probably we do not know the difference. So we just need to be mindful when it comes to some of these trends that are out there. Some of these trends honestly don't have uh, they have the shelf life of a banana in that sense. But nonetheless, what I have seen is, at least if you were to look at the past 5 years, which include the COVID time, there are a few trends that are shaping up the family office mindset, wealth management practitioners, or matriarchs and patriarchs are clearly focusing their attention on some of those trends. And the top of my list would be impact investing. While it might have started out as a fad or as a fashion, but today it is very clearly front and center of any investment portfolio or decision making at the family office level or even at with multifamily offices, where impact investing is about measuring the impact beyond the financial impact. So I can delve a lot more deeper into impact investing, but I think that's one of the trends that we are clearly seeing. Another very interesting thing that I'm seeing is for the first time in generations, we have multiple generations working together. So multi-generation, let's call it multi-generation, two generations in the business at the same time. Historically, what used to happen was the patriarch or the matriarch builds up a business, spends 5, 6, 7 decades working at it, and at some point in time, gifting it, or the next generation inherits it. But what we are seeing is the next generations are getting into the business at a very early stage or early age. So multi-generational planning clearly is a trend that advisors have to focus on, and families also need to be mindful of those. Other trends, clearly the trend of tech is inevitable. It is there, technology. Now, you can call it technology, you can call it digital transformation, but the reality is there are many aspects of technology which were not an issue a few decades back. But in the past 5, 7 years, things like cybersecurity, things like data integrity, both for businesses and ultra high net worth individuals. So technology has become an issue, a challenge. It has been a savior to some extent, but in terms of trends, although technology keeps on changing at a very rapid and fast pace, but I would think, and now we have the trend of things like blockchain and artificial intelligence, to name two, where the names are thrown around left, right, and center, but the reality is we can't ignore them. So technology is another area, a trend that we are seeing. And just to cap it off, one more trend that I would just want to put it out there, with many affluent families, is the case of health and wellness. So gone are the days where physical health was just thought of as just going to the gym. It is not just about the physical health. There's the aspect of mental health, mental well-being that has really come into play. The focus on nutrition, the focus on wellness, while you might say that it has less to do, or there is less demonstrable evidence of it being correlated to wealth. But if you are not healthy and if you are not mentally healthy, wealth management becomes a challenge. So I'll just stop there, but I think I've given some food for thought in terms of 4 or 5 trends out there that we are seeing.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you so much. And those are really the reality of the day. I mean, it's super instructive that you mentioned health and wellness and that it is actually beyond the gym. I mean, just going to the gym and having the biceps and everything. Yeah, super, super instructive. So to continue with speaking on purposeful legacies, I'm just going to ask Asha to help us to understand what purposeful legacies are. I know a lot of people would really want to have a very good understanding of what it is to when we talk about purposeful legacy, especially within the context of estate planning and wealth management.
Sure, happy to take a stab at this. And I think upfront it is useful to kind of try and determine what purposeful legacies are. But the challenge is to each their own. Everybody would have their own definition of it. And my approach on that is, you mentioned estate planning and wealth management. That's probably the technical aspect of looking at purposeful legacies. The softer aspect of it would be the personal values. But then again, whichever bucket you look at, whether from a technical aspect or a personal values aspect, in both of these buckets, the end result is basically the same. What is purposeful legacy? It is it is a thoughtful approach to leaving some kind of a lasting impact that is beyond mere financial assets. Financial assets are merely enablers. So what is beyond financial assets? That's where the legacy comes into play. Uh, so, so the thing is, facts don't cease to exist just because we ignore them. And there are two things out there that matriarchs, patriarchs, founders continue to ignore. One is death and the other is taxes. And we all know both of them are inevitable. So a legacy is where you embrace this, when you realize that death is inevitable. Yes, the assets would survive the patriarch or the founder, but those assets can wither away in no time. It's the personal values that are communicated to the next generation that forms part of a purposeful or a positive legacy. So basically, if I were to summarize, I would say that it's essentially um, aligning your own personal values, and your personal values could come from any of the obvious forms: charity, philanthropy, impact investing, uh, supporting whatever cause you want to support, but doing it in such an efficient way through a structure, through a foundation, through a trust, through a proper will, through an efficient tax structure, through an endowment, through ring fencing your assets in such a way that you are passing down the wealth, but with guardrails. You're not just blindly passing the wealth. It's coming with the guardrails. It's coming with a letter of wishes from, let's say, the settlor. So it's all about the asset, which I said earlier, is an enabler, or the wealth that is an enabler. But purposeful legacy to me would mean something like which has a positive influence for the next generation or the future generations, actually, and where it is kind of coached and guided to them that it's not the assets that are being so the assets and the wealth that is being moved down to them, they are merely stewards of that. They are merely custodians of that, and that's how the legacy endures. So yeah, roundabout way of trying to define what purposeful legacy is, but hopefully
Yeah.
there are points in there.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So I think it just situates on the fact that the financial assets are enablers. They are not really what should be the focus. And so the focus should really be what is the good that you do, whether to the community, how is your legacy continuing with respect to whether is the family business, is there continuity, the good that the family does for the community, do they continue with that impact, their philanthropic activities and all that. So it's just the fact. So thank you so much for breaking it down. Thank you so much for breaking it down. If we want to still speak further, how can you consciously want to, and intentionally want to ensure that you go about establishing a purposeful legacy? So we've talked about what it is, but what are the things you would look out for if you want to be intentional about the fact that you're going to die? Debt and taxes are certain, but you want to ensure that your legacies are enriching enough for future generations to be able to look back and they would have a smile on. So how do you
Oh,
go about setting
yeah,
that
yeah.
up, being intentional about having that purposeful
Uh,
legacy?
so look, all of us, at some point in time, will pause and reflect and think about that legacy that we want to create for our own families, about us. So that's where the answer is. It all starts with self-reflection for the ultra high net worth individual, for the affluent, for the wealthy, and even the not so wealthy. It all starts with a self-reflection, because what you think is what you become. So if you want to have a purposeful legacy, it starts with that self-reflection. And in my case, I would always try to break it down in terms of goal setting, because if you aim at nothing, you hit it. So you need to have goals in place. You need to have KPIs in place. This is what I want to achieve with my wealth, with my assets, or with my just mission and values. And once you have articulated that, or you've had that conversation with yourself, then the next step in establishing a purposeful legacy is to actually articulate that with your family. Nobody is a mind reader. So your kids or your advisors or your spouse is not a mind reader. So family communication, I think, is the next building block in terms of creating a purposeful legacy, where you articulate and you explain what you vision as your purposeful legacy, or collectively or collaboratively, what should be the family legacy. And now, mind you, when this conversation is happening, Sabila is an advisor and a consultant, and she's kind of, I'm assuming, handholding families, and a bit of arbitration, and a bit of listening to different pockets of the family. She would be very good at it, I'm sure. And it is hearing what is not said. So that is
Yeah.
part of the family communication aspect. So yeah, I come from my high pedestal and I have a vision and I want to communicate that. But no, the communication is sometimes trying to hear what is not being said. And then the next step after that, I think, is going out, casting your net wide, and getting professional advice. Um, from the likes of the KPMGs and the PwCs, or the McKinseys or the Bains of the world, depends on, or other types of advisors. But I would think professional advice is invaluable in terms of setting up a purposeful legacy, because it's not just about your thoughts and ideals. There is a bit of inventory check that needs to be done, a bit of in-house assessment that needs to be done. So quantifying what you have and how you're going to pass that through, the tangible and the intangible. So you would need some sort of professional advice. And then one very important building block that I would think is also part of establishing a purposeful legacy is documenting all of it. The challenge is sometimes it's all talk and nothing is really documented. It doesn't have to be a contract, it doesn't have to be a legal document, but sort of transcribing what's in your heart or mind is very important. And of course, recalibrating what might seem like a great idea in terms of a purposeful legacy, that let's set up an endowment for all the orphans of the world. Tonight, this might sound like an amazing idea, but once you have given it more thought, you would realize some of the impracticalities or the challenges, or you might even lose interest in it. So it's about recalibrating some of that, because nothing is really cast in stone. And I would think, as part of the purposeful legacy, the last thing that readily comes to mind is, once that is established to some extent, you again need to communicate it to the beneficiaries or the trustees or the next generation. So those are some, what I've just said is not really the exact blueprint, but I would think that's how you can evolve and create a purposeful legacy.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Asher. Thank you so much. That was really comprehensive. Asha, I need to get your take on the two conversations we've had earlier. You're going to have to give us your take on the family office as well as the rising profile of women within the wealth management space. So over to you, Asha.
Okay, let me take a stab with what Bilal was saying. Look, my career for more than a decade has tracked very closely with Bilal's, where we have both served single family offices, but multi generations. So it's like Bilal was talking, it's not just about the financial aspect of things, and there are softer aspects. How does that come into play? It comes into play because both Bilal and myself have worn multiple hats. So we are the CIO, or we are the CFO, or we are the chief legal officer, but we are also the confidant. We are the consigliere. We are the psychologist. We are the psychiatrist. We are the butler in some ways. So apologies, Bilal. I'm putting a lot more labels onto you, but I think we both have tracked, coming both from Middle Eastern family office backgrounds. That has been the case, and we have embraced it. And our track record of longevity gives us that credibility, authenticity, and access to the boardroom, the drawing room, and the farm. Decisions are not taken in boardrooms. They are taken, the right word in Arabic would be istiraha, or let's call it the desert, or call it the farm, but in a social gathering between different family members. The patriarch would not be talking to his son about death, but the patriarch would be talking to us as a confidant about death or succession planning, while the son might have his own views about, hey, why don't we set up a separate venture fund to invest in crypto, for example. And we being there as a bridge between the first gen or the next gen, have played our role with those multiple hats that we have worn. So that's one aspect of what Bilal was saying, and I'm just going to I was just endorsing what he was saying, because we have both been uh, around the block in circumstances like that. When it comes to women, look, women, there is a perception, and Bilal very clearly and very articulately mentioned this, that women, the Western world, might have their own views about Middle Eastern women, but Middle Eastern women, while in some ways might have had to take a back seat, but even with that back seat, they have been able to exert influence. Yes, they now have more rights, they have more visibility, but I would think that in the past decades as well, they had an access to the decision maker, or they were the informal decision maker. So they weren't as subjugated as Western press at times might make it out to be. So that's my take on the women aspect, but I'm not sure if I'm missing out on any aspect of your question.
No, that's fine. Just to know that I think when Billy has talked about the influence that women do have, the soft power, I mean it kind of just resonated with me. Please speak on there's a lot of conversation on climate impact. There's a lot of conversation on sustainability and ESG and just about everything that is affecting us globally and as people, as human beings on Earth. So what, I mean, looking at purposeful legacies, when it comes to intergenerational work planning, how do you think that families can address this impact or these issues around climate, issues around sustainability, and ESG? So I'm also going to ask Bilal to also speak about it. I mean, what are we saying with respect to family offices, how they hold assets, and what kind of assets, what influence are these issues around climate and sustainability and that whole drive, that whole force?
Yeah, well, the short answer is ditto to what Bilal said. He articulated it very well. Uh, if I were to slightly disagree with him, and again, it's not a disagreement because I'm 100% in agreement with him, but just to add another layer to it, whether we like it or not, the reality is some of this stuff is here to stay. So as family offices, as investors, as of today, or even the past, businesses that we used to focus on, they used to focus on coal, they used to focus on fossil fuels, they used to focus on um, I don't want to say child slavery, but minors at work, single-use plastics, work condition, work health safety conditions were not there, animal cruelty, and that was considered part and parcel of business. But the reality is today we are talking about sustainable farming, we are talking about DEI, whether we like it or not, and the challenge of when I say whether we like it or not is it remains to be seen as to what value it actually brings to the top line and the bottom line in many ways. But there are other things that are here to stay, like from a climate aspect, plant-based initiatives that are taking place. So the reality is sustainability in some way or form is influencing businesses, and businesses are your main engine of wealth generation. Yes, you have
Yeah.
financial products and assets, but sustainability in F&B businesses, sustainability in hospitality and tourism, sustainability in every sector, cosmetics or whatnot, everything is being pushed to go green. Whether in reality it happens or not, the greenwashing aspect, the carbon credit questionable aspect, but the reality is sustainability and its impact is here to stay. If and when do family offices embrace that, only time will tell. uh, but yeah, just to close the loop on it, we cannot ignore ESG, we cannot ignore sustainability. That's all. That's my take on it.
Yeah, fantastic, fantastic. So I'm going to stay with you and we would look at some very important issues when it comes to managing families, especially families of wealth. We all know that they are there is no one, I mean, there are different personalities, so there's no one child that is the same with the other child. There are no two people that are exactly alike. And there are times where you do have challenges within families. There are times where you have addictions, challenges with addictions. There are times where you have spendthrift issues, challenges for those that are inheritors, as well as other issues that you would have, divorce, single parenthood, blended families, and all that. How do you, I mean, as advisors, as experts within the wealth management space, be it within the family office space, how do you navigate these issues when they arise in a family? And I mean, how are you supposed to work around these issues? What is the roadmap so that such that at the end of the day you do have legacies come out from those families and you don't have it all I mean embroidered in one scandal or the other. So how do you what's the roadmap to manage issues around addictions,
Sure.
spendthrift challenges, divorces, um blended families, and all that? So what would you say?
Look, I'm not the subject matter expert on this, and thankfully, during my tenure serving the families that I did serve, none of these issues really came up. So my response would be more academic than practical. I think the first thing in any family would be the challenge of keeping a lid on it, not it becoming too public. So that's where you as an advisor come in. You ring fence the news, the story, the incident, but then you also advise as an advisor how to ring fence some of those assets. If some of those people are authorized signatories, how do you revoke their authority or access? Some carve-outs need to happen. Some people would need to step down from the board. Some reorganizations would need to come into play, and a bit of forward thinking in terms of putting in some conditions in wills, and putting some burden on the trustee through some letter of wishes. So there are many ways to address from a technical point of view or a legal point of view some of these challenges which are inevitable in any family. It's only the gravity of the situation that could be too high or too low. But the reality is these things are happening. Even the definition of family you just alluded to, blended families. So with those challenges, Yeah, there are many solutions out there, but I would not have practical experience to be able to talk at length about it. But I think I've given you some pointers as to, from an academic point of view, how would you go about addressing them.
Okay, fantastic. So what would be your concluding comments?
Look,
Concluding thoughts.
one of my favorite thing that I usually say is, we might be good at whatever we do as advisors, as founders, but there are two actions. One is preventing fire, and the other is fighting fire. I have yet to find somebody who's really good at both. So we really need to understand our limitations. And sometimes it's a gender-based thing where you would find one gender is very good at preventing fire, the other at containing fire or fighting fire. So we need to understand our limitations in whatever role, even if as an advisor, where do we come in? Sometimes we might be very good at putting in all the guardrails in place, and sometimes we might be the one they call in when the proverbial shit hits the ceiling or the fan. So yeah, preventing fire versus fighting fire, understand our limitations and play within those.
Yeah, thank you so much. What do you want to say to the rising gen?
It's going to be a little bit controversial. I mean, for the rising generations, definitely now with the knowledge being available almost at our fingertips, they need to be a little bit more humble. I've seen so many, at least in the past 2-3 years, 4 or 5 next gen, so arrogant in their understanding of what they know that they become prone for big mistakes. So they need to definitely be knowledgeable, but they need to be humble about what they know and what they don't know. I mean, still, unfortunately, in life, no matter how much technology you have, I mean, experience still has a value, and you have to avoid mistakes by, I mean, looking at the experience. And this is what, I mean, my word, I mean, to the next generation. I mean, the energy is great, the knowledge is great, but sometimes they have to be a little bit more realistic about their expertise. So they have to be a little bit more humble. And I can give one particular example. I mean, one next gen was tasked to, you know, to set, not to set up, but to take over the, you know, the family office. And the first thing that person wanted to do is to restructure herself, you know, the legal ownership of everything, including trusts and all of that. And she's not a tax expert, multi-jurisdiction. I mean, I know that, I mean, sometimes you've done or you've seen one on wherever, or you've read the book, but don't be fooled to be over confident. So be realistic, and that's you know the best thing that they should do. They have great knowledge, great communication skills. They just need to be careful about their, you know, managing their you know, arrogance in terms of what they know and what they don't know.
Oh, wow, fantastic. Thank you so much, Asha. It's been fantastic, absolutely fantastic just listening to you. I mean, we could actually understand the depth of knowledge, the depth of experience, the expertise that was available today. So thank you so much, everyone. We've come to the end of our first panel.